Welcome back, everybody. This week, we're not going to be taking a look at a pen or an ink. In fact, we're going to be taking a look at a product I hardly ever review, which is actually kind of an interesting thing to not be reviewing, especially on a stationery channel. So this week, we're going to be taking a look at the Proton Pocket Notebook from Elemental Paper. Now, disclosure time, they did provide the 3-pack of notebooks here at no cost, so keep that in mind. But just so you know, I will be brutally honest, and, well, just overall brutal with this paper, so there is that. And disclaimer number 2, yeah, I normally don't review paper, so this is kind of why this review has taken 2 weeks instead of 1 to get done. Now, one thing I've always liked about Elemental Paper is the way that they package their products. So in the case of the Pocket Notebooks, we get a 3-pack in this nice outer cardboard box. Not only does it give us a little bit of information about Elemental Paper as a company, but it also gives us a little bit of the background information on the particular scientific element or particle that this particular notebook is named after. So with this being a 3-pack of protons, I guess we could say that this would be the building blocks of lithium. All corny dad jokes aside though, I really like the quality and the feel that we get from these pocket notebooks. As it says on the box, these are dot grid 72 pages of Tomoe River paper, and 68 GSM Tomoe River paper at that. And I really like the design choices we have here, especially going with a stitching for the binding on the paper, instead of a staple binding that we get with some other pocket notebooks. And I've got to say that the stamping of the Proton symbol and the Elemental Company logo into this leatherette cover was a very nice design choice. Now, before we take a look at the writing samples, these are the pens that I used to do the samples with. So we've got the M800 Stone Garden, the M600 White Turquoise, the Angel's Delight Pro Gear, the 2019 Tropical Turquoise Vanishing Point, a Brooks Charleston, a Newton Majestic, an Atelier Lusso Andromeda, a Karas Customs Decograph, and a random Sharpie. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start with the title page to see how each of these pens and Sharpie hold up on the title page itself. Now, this title page is not Tomoe River paper. I don't know what kind of paper it is actually, but as we zoom in, you are going to see significant feathering from each ink. So if the entire notebook was made from this paper, we would definitely have issues, but as it is only being the title page, I think we're pretty good here. Now, moving past the title page, we've got the first of our ink samples on the Tomoe River paper. I'm going to go ahead and have a graphic pop up now to show you which pen was used with each ink. Now, taking a look at the bleed through of each sample, you can see that the 68 GSM that was sourced from Elemental is doing really good here. This is kind of the bleed through I would expect on Tomoe, and the performance on the Sharpie was actually pretty good. But before we look at the color in the Proton notebooks, I wanted to point out one thing. So on the left, we have the ivory colored paper from the Endless Works notebooks, and on the right, we have the cream colored paper in the Proton notebook. While both of these turquoises are still very pleasing to the eye, personally, I prefer the vibrancy that we get from the ivory colored paper in comparison to the cream. But let's go ahead and take a look in the Protons. Overall, the color we're getting here isn't bad, but it is muted. These are colors that I normally see coming off more vibrant or more bold when I'm using an ivory or a white paper. Now, there is one exception here. If you look at the sample of 4001 Brilliant Red, it actually looks red on this paper. And I'm going to admit, I really like how we're getting a good look at each of the fundamental color profiles from these inks, but the one thing I'm missing is sheen. I'm really spoiled by the amount of sheen and shimmer in some cases that we can get using these exact same inks on a white paper. It's not all about ink though, and for that, let's take a look at these 3 different pencil samples in the Proton notebooks. Honestly, I like the way the pencil comes off, and the writing experience was actually quite pleasant. This may be the one area where these notebooks shine for me. Or at least shade. I mean, when you look at the shading profiles, this paper really allows the pencils to shine in that area. And at least you also don't have to worry about this common problem when using pocket notebooks with fountain pens, and that is accidentally closing the book before your ink has had a chance to dry. I mean, look at how much ink just got on the other page. And one problem that we're going to take a look at that is definitely a pocket notebook problem is what happens with these Proton notebooks if they get wet. And not just a small splash, but a worst case scenario for if your pocket notebook ends up getting submerged with you or without you in the washer, whatever the case may be. This was one of those I got exactly what I was expecting moments. The pages that had direct contact with the water really didn't hold up that well. Luckily for me, I was using an ink where I'd be able to recover my writing later, and the paper didn't just completely dissolve. And another nice touch, the leatherette cover actually held up quite well. And one thing I wasn't expecting was the duck-like quality of the inner pages that actually didn't get wet, like the prep for the water test here. Held up extremely well. And while you only saw 30 seconds of it, this notebook was actually submerged for about 5 minutes total. So that's a win for this notebook. So when it comes to my final thoughts for the Proton notebooks here from Elemental Paper, I need you to take these with a grain of salt, and here's why. The majority of my writing is done in an A5 Tomoe River paper notebook from Endless Works. And because of the size bag I carry around with me all the time, I'm able to comfortably carry an A5 with no problems. And when it comes to pocket notebooks, the only real experience I've had is Field Notes, which is not fountain pen friendly, at least in my experience, at all. So what we have here is honestly a good pocket notebook in my opinion, and it is just that, my opinion. I like the leatherette cover, I like the fact that it's Tomoe River paper, I don't like the cream paper, but some people might. The binding is really well done, and I like the color that they chose for these notebooks. So overall, I like it. It's a good product, and the price point for a pack of 3 is really good. Would I buy it? Probably not as much as I would a regular notebook, but that's because I use regular notebooks more often. But if pocket notebooks are more your thing, check the link down below to see where you could buy these, and thank you to Elemental Paper for providing them so I could review. That's going to do it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, support channel sponsor Chalet, and support the channel over on Patreon, and I'll see you guys next week.